The Book That Changed Our Reality. Introduction. 16 years ago, I published my first two books, A Road to Wealth and Happiness and The Secret to Success. Those books came from a season of learning. I spent years reading the works of great thinkers, studying successful people, attending seminars, and filling my shelves with books about personal growth, prosperity, psychology, faith, and human potential. I was fascinated by the question that has inspired philosophers for centuries. Why do some people flourish while others remain trapped in the same struggles? The more I learned, the more I wanted to share, so I wrote. Every page was filled with sincerity. Every chapter reflected what I believed to be true. I wrote with enthusiasm of someone who had discovered valuable principles and wanted others to benefit from them. Looking back today, I still believe those principles are true, but I also recognize something I could not have understood then. Knowledge and experience are not the same thing. One can explain life, the other transforms it. My first two books were built largely on what I had learned from remarkable teachers. They were grounded in timeless ideas about success, discipline, gratitude, faith, perseverance, and the power of our thoughts. Those lessons remain valuable because truth does not change. But over the past 16 years, life quietly added something those books could never fully contain. Experience. Life became the teacher that no classroom, seminar, or best-selling author could replace. It taught through unexpected disappointments, through moments of joy those words could barely be described, through failures that humble me, through relationships that challenge my understanding of love, through watching people succeed and watching others slowly lose themselves, despite having everything the world says should make them happy. I began to realize that life rarely unfolds the way theories suggest. Real people are complicated. We know what is right, yet we often choose what is familiar. We understand forgiveness, yet we struggle to let go. We dream of changing, yet we keep repeating the same patterns. The question was no longer, what should people do? The question became, why do we keep doing the opposite of what we know? That question changed everything. As the years passed, I found myself observing life differently. I saw families divided over misunderstandings that have lasted decades. I met wealthy people who live with constant anxiety and people with very little who carry remarkable peace. I watch children grow into fine adults not simply because of what they were taught, but because what they absorbed without ever realizing it. Working with families, raising my own children, becoming a grandmother, building businesses, traveling to different countries, caring for aging loved ones, and simply paying closer attention to everyday life. All of these became chapters in an education that no university could have offered. Some of the greatest lessons came from ordinary moments, a conversation with a stranger, a neighbor whose home was overflowing with possessions while loneliness quietly consumed her life, an elderly couple who taught me more about devotion than any book on relationships. Watching a caterpillar disappear into its cocoon only to emerge weeks later as a butterfly, reminding me that transformation is often invisible before it becomes beautiful. These experiences did not merely add information to my mind, they changed the way I saw the world. They changed the way I saw myself. Slowly, I realized that our greatest obstacles are rarely outside us. They live within us. Hidden beliefs, own wounds, unexamined fears, invisible habits, the stories we keep telling ourselves. Most of us spend years trying to improve our circumstances without ever examining the person creating those circumstances. That realization became the beginning of this book. Unlike my earlier books, these pages are not simply a collection of principles. They are conversations between knowledge and experience, between what I once believed and what life eventually revealed, between the lessons I learned from great mentors and the lessons I could only learn by living. Throughout these chapters, you will meet psychologists, philosophers, spiritual teachers, scientists, and successful individuals whose wisdom has shaped generations. But you also meet ordinary people, neighbors, friends, parents, children, strangers, people those names history may never remember, yet whose lives quietly reveal profound truths about human nature. Because wisdom is not found only in famous books, it is found in hospital waiting rooms, in classrooms, in gardens, in family dinners, in moments of loss, in unexpected acts of kindness, in silence. If my first two books ask, how can we become more successful? This book asks a different question. Who are we becoming while we pursue success? That question reaches beneath achievement. It reaches beneath wealth. It reaches beneath happiness itself. It invites us to explore something even deeper, our consciousness, our identity, our unconscious patterns, our ego, our shadow. Years ago, I believed that changing our lives meant changing our habits. Today, I understand that lasting change begins much deeper than habits. It begins with awareness. Carl Jung once wrote that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we'll call it fate. Those words stay with me for years. The more I observe human behavior, the more I realize how true they were, not only in other people, but in myself. Awareness is not always comfortable. Sometimes it asks us to admit what we have been avoiding parts of ourselves. Sometimes it is reveal what the person standing in our way is not someone else. It is the version of ourselves we have never been willing to question. That can be painful, but it is also where freedom begins. I do not write these pages as someone who has all the answers. I write as a fellow traveler, someone who is still learning, still making mistakes, and still discovering new layers of understanding with every season of life. If there is one difference between the person who wrote those first two books and the person writing this one today, it is this. 16 years ago, I wanted to teach people what I had learned. Today, I simply want to share what life has taught me. Some lessons came from books, many came from mentors, but the deepest ones came from living, from falling, from questioning, from listening, from observing, from beginning again. Perhaps that is why this book feels different. It is less about giving answers. It is more about inviting reflection, less about changing your life overnight, more about helping you understand why your life has unfolded the way it has. Because once we truly understand ourselves, our choices begin to change. When our choices change, our lives naturally follow. My hope is that somewhere within these pages you will recognize a piece of your own story. Not because our lives are identical, but because beneath our different circumstances, we all wrestle with the same human questions. Who am I? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? What is holding me back? How do I become whole? This book does not promise perfection. It offers something more meaningful, the invitation to see yourself with greater honesty, greater compassion, and greater awareness. Because when awareness grows, fear begins to lose its grip. The unconscious becomes conscious. The shadow begins to soften, and slowly, almost quietly, our reality begins to change. Not because the world has changed, but because we have.